So today I'm going to talk about criticism versus ranking movies. I've often heard people get this kind of mixed up, and one of my favorite critics actually talked about it on a podcast. Another one of my favorite critics, the first one's name is Chris Stuckman, and the podcast is named Schmoes Know, hosted by two gentlemen, one by the name of Mark Ellis and the other by the name of Christian Harloff. I agree with a lot of what they're saying. It causes contention between your critic and your average everyday moviegoer. It's criticism versus ranking movies. Criticism is different than ranking movies. First, I'm going to talk about what criticism actually is. Criticism is analyzing the quality of the movie. That's about as simple as you can put it. When we go into criticism, we look into many different points. For me, the three mains that I look into are the writing, the acting, and technical elements. Writing, you have the plot, the characters, and the dialogue. In acting, you have character portrayal and line delivery. The technical elements, you have the visual effects, the cinematography, costume, set design, and editing. Writing and acting are more important than the technical elements. Not to say that the technical elements aren't important, but they have a tendency to not make or break a movie as much. The writing is definitely heavy-handed for me. Plot, in particular, that's definitely the highest percentage of how I analyze a movie. They're concrete things that you can look at to tell if a movie is good. The problem with ranking, mainly I follow critics on YouTube, and a lot of times they'll put in it favorite movies instead of best. You create a list of the best, it's not really objective anymore because of how close those movies are, and sometimes they're dead on. In the video that I mentioned before with Chris Stuckman and the Schmoes, they said that oftentimes these movies are just great, and what they're basically doing is, what did they like more? I can point out examples of myself. Last year, it was a little bit different. Usually, you'll have those couple spots like the first three where you're like, I don't know. Last year was a little bit different. Like, there's not a movie that definitively I could say could be my number one spot. This was a movie called La La Land. But my second, third, and fourth are movies called Arrival, Hacksaw Ridge, and Manchester by the Sea. And they both bring something to the table that's very different, but they're all great. I'm deciding based off of which I like better. Like this year, my 1 and 2 are they're almost floating back and forth between Blade Runner 2049 and Logan. There are critics that tried to do it. AFI, American Film Institute, they've put out 2 top 100 movies of all time lists. That's hard. They're claiming that it's the best, and I think that they think it's the best. But ultimately, how can you say which is better? That's what I have trouble creating top 10 lists, even for the year of all time, because of this fact. They're just, a lot of times they're so close in quality that you can't. Okay, so in conclusion, criticism is more concrete. It's got, more stuff that you can actually look at and say, yep, I see that, I see that, I see that, I see that. Ranking movies is a little bit more personal. A lot of times it has to be a favorites list because of how close the movies are in quality. So please just keep that in mind.